leftovers. It seems that every time you open your fridge, you are confronted by an endless array of Tupperware containers containing the remains of meals long forgotten. You sigh and think to yourself, if only there was a better way. Well, today I am proud to present to you the magical recipe of a frittata. With frittatas, you too can turn those boring leftovers into a delicious meal using only eggs, heat, and the burning desire not to have to eat that Easter ham for the third time this week. You have some leftovers? Okay. You have some eggs? Okay. Let's get cracking. Hello and welcome, honorable judges and my fellow Field to Fork Challenge participants. My name is Jacques, and this is my 5th year in the Saanich 4-H Lion Club here on beautiful Vancouver Island. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make a potato feta frittata. I really like this recipe because not only is it delicious and easy to make, but it's also very nutritious and it's an amazing way of highlighting some local BC ingredients. Now, before I handle any of these wonderful BC ingredients, there are 3 important safety steps that I need to follow. First, if I had long hair, I would tie it back so that it wouldn't get in the food. Then, I would make sure my workspace is clean of any debris or random food stuff from previous meals. Third, and most importantly, I will wash my hands with soap for over 20 seconds. So, now that that's out of the way, let's go over the ingredients. First, I'll go over the ingredients that I will use in this frittata, and then I will go over some other possible filling options that you can use as a substitute for pretty much anything. You will need 6 large fresh BC eggs, BC basil, 2 tablespoons of it, 1 tablespoon of fresh BC rosemary, 1 teaspoon of BC canola oil, 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, a 1/2 cup of BC red potatoes, a 1/2 cup of BC ham, a 1/2 cup of BC bell peppers, a 1/2 cup of BC tomatoes, 1/3 cup BC feta cheese, and if you don't have some of these ingredients on hand, you can swap them out fairly easily with other things you might have in your fridge, such as a 1/2 cup of diced BC onions or a 1/2 cup of diced BC mushrooms. So, now let's get into the recipe. The first thing you're going to want to do is to dice up your potatoes. I'm using red potatoes because personally I find that red potatoes have a more appealing texture and flavor than white potatoes, but it's really up to you what kind of potatoes you have. You're going to want to dice your potatoes into centimeter-sized cubes and keep doing that until you have about a 1/2 cup of them. When using a knife, make sure that your fingers are never in the way. Well, this could definitely be going much faster. And look at that, it's done. Okay, so now you have your 1/2 cup of diced potatoes. Then you're going to want to do the same thing with your ham. Cut it up into centimeter-sized cubes until you have about a 1/2 cup of ham. And I'm also going to speed up the process here too. So, now that we have our 1/2 cup of diced ham and our 1/2 cup of diced potatoes, we are going to prepare the rosemary. I harvested this rosemary from just outside in my garden. So what you're going to want to do is just cut up the rosemary into small-ish pieces. You're going to want to do this until you have about a tablespoon or so of rosemary. And then you'll set that aside for later. But before we start cooking, we need to prepare the canola oil and the pan. And for that, let's switch to our super high-tech stovetop cam. Okay, so here we are at the stovetop cam. And as you can see, I have put the frying pan on top of the stove, but I haven't turned on the stove yet. And I have my BC rosemary, my BC canola oil, and my diced BC potatoes and diced BC ham. And now we're ready to start cooking. So, you're going to want to turn on the stovetop burner on a low-medium heat. My stove top goes from 1 to 10. I put it about halfway between 2 and 3. And then, what you're going to want to do is pour your teaspoon of canola oil into the pan. This is to stop the frittata from sticking to the pan, which is important. You want to spread it around so it covers most of the pan. And then you're going to put in your diced potato and ham, as well as about a tablespoon or so of your chopped up BC rosemary. Then you're going to want to use your wooden spoon to mix it around. You want it all mixed together evenly between the canola oil and the rosemary, the ham, and the potatoes. Okay, started sizzling. Now, what I like to do, you don't have to do this, but what I like to do is to take a stovetop lid and put it on top, just so it traps the heat. And you're going to want to leave it like this to cook for about 10 minutes or so, or until the potatoes are golden brown. And you're going to want to stir it every 3 minutes or so. In the meantime, let's go and prepare our other ingredients. Well, let's not waste any time. While the potatoes and the ham are cooking on the stove, you should prepare your other ingredients. The first step in this part of the recipe is to take your mixing bowl and to take your Farm Fresh BC eggs and crack your 6 Farm Fresh BC eggs into your mixing bowl. So, once you have your 6 eggs in your mixing bowl, like so, you take your whisk and mix them together until they're all one color. But you need to make sure that you don't over-mix them, because that will result in your frittata having an unappealing texture. Just a bit more. That's a bit off the whisk. Voila! There is your egg mix. Now, we're going to set this aside for now, and then prepare the other ingredients that will go with our egg mix. So, now, let's prepare the ingredients that will go with our eggs. First, let's start with the BC bell peppers. So, what you're going to want to do, just like pretty much all the other ingredients, is to dice them up into centimeter-sized cubes. You're going to want, again, like with all the other ingredients, you're going to want about a half cup or so. Well, this is going to take a while. Might as well just speed it up. Okay, so now we have a half cup of diced fresh BC bell peppers. So, what we're going to do with this is just set it to the side for now until we have our tomatoes ready. Again, it's probably getting a bit repetitive me saying this again, but you're going to want to take your fresh BC tomatoes and dice them up into centimeter-sized cubes, and you're going to want about a half cup or so of that. But there's an extra step with the tomatoes. Ooh, we're getting fancy. While some recipes want tomato juice, this one doesn't. So once you have your cubes of tomato, you're going to want to strain them over the sink to get most of the juices out. Did you know that tomatoes are a very close relative of deadly nightshade? They're still perfectly safe to eat, though. Well, this is taking some time. Might as well speed it up. So, there we go. We have our diced tomatoes, and we have our diced BC bell peppers. So, what we're going to want to do with these is to take your mixed eggs, and then you're going to want to put these raw ingredients in with the eggs. So, we're just going to mix this in, and boom, it's ready to go on the stove. Oh, wait, no it isn't. I forgot one thing. I like to add about a half teaspoon of ground pepper at this point, just to sort of give the recipe a bit of zest, a bit of spice. Now we're ready to add this to the stove. Okay, so let's check on our potatoes and ham. There, they're all nice golden brown and crispy. So, now we are going to put the stove top lid aside, and then we're going to take our ingredients that we prepared while that was cooking, specifically the pepper, eggs, tomatoes, and bell peppers, and then we're just going to pour it on top. And as you can see, the egg is spreading around to fill in the gaps. But we want a nice layer of egg on the bottom. So we're going to mix it around a little bit, just so that eggs can get all the way on the bottom everywhere, and so that the other ingredients are spread out evenly. And then we're going to want to cook this for about 10-15 minutes, or until you can take your thin spatula and lift the edge, and the edge stays intact. So you want it to have a sturdy rim before we move on to the next step. I will get back to you when that is done. While you're waiting for your frittata to cook, I recommend turning on your oven's broiler to a high setting and just letting it warm up, because we're going to use that very soon. Yeah? Okay. So, looks like the bottom of the frittata is just about done. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, the eggs are still totally runny on the top. That's what we're going to fix with the broiler. So, but before I put in the broiler, I'm going to put on a 1/3 cup of fresh BC feta cheese. And this adds some nice cheesy goodness to your frittata. I'm just going to stir it around with my wooden spoon. And if you want, you can also add 2 tablespoons of chopped basil. Personally, I don't really like the flavor of basil that much, but if you want to add basil, now would be the time. So, now we're going to use our oven mitts to pick up the pan, because it's hot by now. Then, we're going to put it in the oven. And do not forget to turn off the stovetop. So, now we're going to let it cook in the oven for about 4 minutes, or until you can put a knife into it and the knife comes out clean, with no cheese or anything sticking to it. So, let's just wait for that then. Okay, so, looks like the frittata's about done. Let's pull it out of the oven, shall we? Always make sure to use oven mitts. Doesn't that just look delicious? You can see the cheese has melted and spread around on the top. Oops. Well, that's how you make a frittata. I've taught you all I know, and now I hope that you can go impress your friends and family with the fact that the ham in the delicious egg dish they are currently eating is in fact 3 weeks old. Thank you.